Deadman Wonderland is not about a prison. It looks like one. There are cells, guards, death row inmates, and a boy trying to survive inside a system designed to break him. But what this show is actually doing is asking something far more disturbing than any of the violence on screen. What if the real crime wasn't what the prisoners did to get there, but what the people on the outside were willing to pay to watch happen to them? Every fight, every death, every moment of suffering in Deadman Wonderland exists inside a system that someone built, someone runs, and someone profits from. And the most chilling part of this anime is not the monsters inside the prison, it's how familiar the logic of the people running it sounds. Because we have seen this before, and by the end of this video, you might realize we never really stopped.
I don't disagree.
The story begins with Gonta Igarashi, a completely ordinary middle school student. He has friends, he goes to class, he has no criminal record, no violent history, nothing about him that suggests he belongs anywhere near a prison. Then one day, a mysterious figure floats through his classroom window and massacres everyone inside, every single one of his classmates. Gonta is the only survivor, and within days he is convicted of the massacre.
I fear the only recourse that we have is capital punishment.
Sentenced to death and shipped off to Deadman Wonderland, a privately owned prison that doubles as a theme park where the public pays to watch inmates perform dangerous stunts and compete in deadly games for their entertainment. Read that again. A privately owned prison that doubles as a theme park where the public pays admission to watch prisoners risk their lives for entertainment. Gonta did not commit the crime he was convicted of. The evidence was fabricated. The trial was a performance, and the system that processed him, the police, the courts, the media, moved so efficiently from accusation to conviction to sentencing that nobody stopped to ask whether any of it was true, because the truth was never the point. The point was getting another body into Deadman Wonderland, another performer for the audience, another source of revenue for the people running the show. Gonta's story begins with the most brutal possible illustration of the show's thesis. The system doesn't need you to be guilty, it just needs you to be useful. And the moment you become useful to it, the truth about who you are becomes completely irrelevant. Inside Deadman Wonderland, Gonta discovers something that the public visiting the theme park never sees. Beneath the performance level of the prison exists a secret facility called G-Ward, where a group of prisoners called Deadmen, who have the ability to weaponize their own blood, are forced to fight each other in gladiatorial death matches called the Carnival Corpse. These fights are held for a private audience of wealthy spectators who pay enormous sums to watch prisoners with supernatural abilities tear each other apart. The winner survives, the loser has a body part surgically removed as a penalty. But the most disturbing mechanism in Deadman Wonderland isn't the Carnival Corpse, it's the caste points system that governs every prisoner's daily survival. Every inmate in the prison needs to earn caste points to buy the antidote that counteracts a poison slowly killing them through their collar. No points, no antidote, death. And the primary way to earn points is to perform, to entertain, to put yourself in danger for the crowd watching from the other side of the glass. The prison has engineered a situation where every single prisoner is financially incentivized to risk their life for public entertainment just to stay alive for another day. The prison didn't just lock these people up, it built an entire economic system around their suffering. It made their pain into a product, and then it sold that product to a public that bought tickets, watched the shows, and never asked what was actually happening to the people performing for them. The most psychologically devastating thing Deadman Wonderland does is show you what the system produces over time. Gonta arrives as a frightened, grieving, completely innocent child. He has no fighting ability, no survival instinct, no understanding of the world he's been thrown into. And the prison, methodically, systematically, strips everything that made him ordinary away from him. It forces him to fight to survive. It forces him to use his blood ability that he never asked for. It forces him to make choices that no child should ever have to make. By the time he understands the prison well enough to fight back against it, he has already become something different from who he was when he arrived. The system didn't rehabilitate Gonta. It didn't punish him either because he never committed a crime. What it did was transform him. It took an innocent person, subjected him to sustained violence and trauma and impossible choices, and produced someone capable of violence in return. And then, in the most cynical possible twist, that transformation made him more valuable to the prison, more dangerous, more entertaining. The system that broke him profits more from the broken version of him than it ever could have from the original. And then there is Shiro, Ganta's childhood friend who appears inside the prison, cheerful, strange, almost childlike in how she moves through a place designed to destroy people. Shiro carries the deepest secret in the entire show. She is not just a prisoner, she is the original product of Deadman Wonderland's experiments, the first test subject, the person the entire facility was built around and built upon. Her suffering didn't happen because the system was cruel. Her suffering was the research that made the system possible. She paid a price she never consented to pay as a child so that the people running Deadman Wonderland could build what they built. Ganta was thrown into a system built on Shiro's pain, and neither of them chose any of it. The system simply decided that what it could extract from them was worth more than what it would cost them. That calculation, made by people in clean offices far from the cells, is the real monster of Deadman Wonderland. Here is what Deadman Wonderland is actually describing. The idea of a prison that profits from the suffering of its inmates, that engineers situations where prisoners must perform or die, is not a fantasy. The private prison industry in the United States generates billions of dollars annually.
But critics say they only make a profit by cutting costs on basics like food and healthcare, and that leads to abuse and neglect. Today, the industry is worth more than $5 billion.
Private prison companies are publicly traded on the stock market. They have shareholders, they pay dividends, and their profitability depends directly on keeping their facilities full, which creates a documented financial incentive to incarcerate more people, keep them longer, and lobby against the reforms that would reduce the prison population. The prison doesn't need you to be guilty, it needs you to be occupied. The entertainment angle of Deadman Wonderland is not as far from reality as it looks either. Scared Straight, a real program that ran for decades in American prisons, brought cameras inside facilities and filmed inmates being subjected to intimidation and psychological abuse for a television audience that watched it as entertainment. The show won Emmy Awards. It was broadcast on primetime television. Audiences watched real prisoners in real pain and called it educational programming. The line between Deadman Wonderland's Carnival Corpse and a primetime prison documentary is thinner than anyone who watched those shows wants to admit. And Ganta's wrongful conviction is not an anomaly. The Innocence Project, a real legal organization, has documented over 375 wrongful convictions in the United States alone, where innocent people were exonerated by DNA evidence after spending years or decades in prison. Some were on death row. Some were executed before the evidence emerged. The system that processed them moved with the same efficiency as the system that processed Ganta, from accusation to conviction to sentencing, without the truth ever being the priority. Because the system was never designed to find the truth. It was designed to process cases, and processing cases produces bodies, and bodies fill prisons, and full prisons generate revenue. Deadman Wonderland ends without resolving everything. The prison still stands. The people who built it are still powerful. Ganta survives, but he is not the same person who walked in, and the show leaves you with something that sits uncomfortably in your chest long after the credits roll. The audience watching Deadman Wonderland's death games from the other side of the glass never thought of themselves as the villains of the story. They bought their tickets, they watched the show, they went home. They never had to see what happened to the performers after the lights went down. And that distance between the people consuming the product and the people who are the product is what makes the whole system possible. It's what makes it sustainable. It's what makes it invisible. The question Deadman Wonderland leaves you with is not whether systems like this exist. They do. The question is whether you have ever been part of the audience, consuming something, entertaining yourself with something, supporting something without asking what it actually cost to the person on the other side of the glass. Because the people in those clean offices far from the cells were counting on you not to ask. The prison was never the punishment. The audience was.